Thank you very much. Thank you for this introduction. And actually, I was thinking when you were talking, if I ever decide to become a superstar, I will do my best to headhunt you from Katrugli to become my agent. Thank you. Colleagues, hello everyone. My name is Yuliya Rak, as the colleague has already introduced me. And this is a great pleasure and excitement for me to be here on this stage. And to tell you the truth, it is a very big challenge to me to talk to you, because by my nature, I am a person who loves to talk. And when I was said by organizers that I have only 15 minutes to present something, I was really, really struggling. And I see that all my colleagues that have been before me and their quality of their presentations was really formidable. I was really learning a lot from your practices. The colleagues were having the same challenge. And because I wanted you to have something when you listen to me, I wanted you to go out from this room with some practical tip and trick what you can do for talent management. That is why I have decided not to go into the whole strategy of JTI, but rather to take one project which I think can be really useful for you, whether you are a leader who needs to connect the people question to the business results, as the Deloitte colleague was talking about, or you are an HR who has to enable leaders to do that effectively. I hope that my presentation will be useful for you. I will be talking about the employer certifications. And I've seen already today, I think with PepsiCo example, we are on the very similar track. We do go to external benchmarking in order to see whether our internal processes, whether our internal practices are good enough and competitive enough. And all of the HRs in the room will recognize that. There are a lot of statistical researches which show that engaged employees are actually much more productive, much more focused to the strategy, much more customer-oriented, and so on and so forth. But I'm working on Balkans. I'm working for the 8 countries in the Balkans. And when I'm coming with this kind and this type of approaches to my employees, there is one very similar but a common expression that I find on their faces. And if I'm in Bosnia, which is my favorite of all countries in Balkans, I love Bosnia, then they're not like that. They're just going, let's go to coffee, that's okay, employer certifications, fine. If I'm in Croatia, which is the reason for me to develop as a professional, the most challenging country in terms of business challenge, they're really requesting me to be professional, then they will be more like that. I know that my people who contribute to their business results every day, they might be skeptical about, like, okay, you're doing certifications and advertising yourself to the external audience. How does it help the business? And I know that my challenge as an HR to show that link, if we have a good level of processes that help people be productive, then there is a very clear link to the business results overall. So in Adriatica, we're covering from here, from Serbia, we're covering 8 countries. And we're doing a research, seeing which kind of employer certifications are better in which countries, which are more recognizable. And we do have a few in different countries. We have the top employer for Serbia. We have Poslodavac partner for Croatia and Slovenia. But these certifications that are very time-consuming, that are very rigorous in terms of aligning your processes to the requirements of the external assessor, these certifications were nothing a challenge to this one, which is investors in people. And I'm happy to say that we are the first, at the moment, we are the first company in Serbia who have this status of investors in people. And actually, I would like to tell you more about this certification. Investors in people is kind of different certification, because this is a British certification now going internationally. And what they do, they have a very rigorous and very strict set of criteria. But this set of criteria are not discussed with the HR. Investors in people goes to people and ask them about HR policies and practices and processes and projects. And if you have the policy written, but the people do not know about it, Investors in People says, you don't have that policy. So when we, in 2014, when we decided to go into this project, it was a great challenge for us. Because what we started with, we have decided, okay, we think we want to try. And we started looking. There are policies and procedures. Other certificates, other employer certifications say us that we have all the compliant, all the practices there. But here, are we sure that our people know about it? And what we started with, we started exploring with people, asking them those questions that the certification was requiring. And we started with that. And actually, it took us around 3 months to see where we are good and where we need to develop. After that, when we have seen that, okay, we are ready, we have called the Investors in People auditor to come in. And the day before she came, she sent us a list of names, 15% of the organization, that she wants to meet. We had to arrange the interviews, and if people were, thank God, this was not the case for us, but if people are on sick leave or not able to come, we do need to provide like written justification. She wants to see everyone she picks up. She doesn't care if anybody doesn't speak English, we have to arrange translation for her, and she talks with people about processes. I will show you what exactly she's talking about. And based on the answers of people, she actually takes the time and then decides whether we do have those processes going on or we don't. And this certification needs to be reconfirmed every 3 years in order to hold this status of Investors in People. As with majority of certificates, you do have to reconfirm it. So, what is Investors in People looking for? Well, basically, very similar things that any other certification. First thing they start with is the strategy. And the type of questions they're asking are like, what are the values of the company? Okay, how do you know that the values are lived in the company? Do the leaders have live the values? And can you give me an example when the leader was living the values of the company? What is the strategy in L&D of the company? How do you see that this strategy is not only on paper? And people have to answer this question. The second one is, what are we doing to implement that strategy and values and ideas? And this is about performance management. Are you getting the regular feedback? Are the goals clear? Are they cascaded? Are they linked to the big strategy? Are you having coaching with your manager? Are you cooperating regularly with your employees? And all of these questions need to be proven by the examples people can come up with or cannot come up with. And the last one is about continuous improvement and evaluating the results. And it is more about how do you, as a professional, make sure that what you learn is applied at work? How do you make sure that those projects that HR is initiating are contributing to the final bottom line, to the results of the company? And the funniest thing, when you do it in that conversation, when you bring people, because in other certification, it is me, HR, thinking about those questions and answering to the consultant. When you bring people into this conversation, a very tremendous side effect is happening. And that side effect is that people are starting to understand. Why do we need to have the policies? Why this performance management process is happening regularly? And this is a huge and amazing and extraordinary fun side effect which is coming up from this kind of certification. Okay, so when we were doing this certification, I told you, first thing we were doing the pre-assessment. And the Investors in People was requesting us to step in the shoes of our people and think, what would they say? I had no idea. I am HR and I know the processes. So what I did, I went to people. And people told me, when this area is filled, from the point of view of a person, this is great. When the area is empty, that means the person has no idea what this question is about. And we had a chance to do a great audit of our internal population to see where they are standing in terms of knowing our processes and procedures. And based on that, we had quite a few insights. First type of insight was there are processes that we don't have. We need to to improve. And the second type of insight was there are many processes that we do have, but people are not aware. So our major strengths were values. People really had many examples of living the values. Continuous learning, how people learn and how it helps them to develop into current and future roles. People management, this is a strength of JTI Adriatica. I'm really proud of managers I'm working with. They're great support to HR. Feedback culture and career planning. We do have very structured, big processes, mostly driven by our bigger structure to plan the career locally and internationally. We also found some of the weaknesses of the organization. And the biggest weakness that was being pushed by investors and people and was not existing in Adriatica is when the team plans development objectives for each other. It was about evaluation, return on investment of L&D. It was about bottom-up feedback to managers. It was about mentoring opportunities and corporate social responsibility. And as I told you, for some of them we did have the processes, but we understood that people are not aware of them. And for some of them we had to start working and doing our part of the job. So what we did, it took us half a year before we called investors and people and said we are ready to go in with certification. Because what we did, we started with fixing the things that were not working. And we were doing inventing or upgrading those projects we were already having to fill in those gaps that we were seeing that we have in comparison to the standard. The second thing that we did, we started regular meetings with our population for them to question us and for us to answer them on our major processes and to bring those policies closer to people. Then we have started issuing the news, the written news that we were sharing with our people, and based on that news we were doing numerous quizzes and questioning and sharing prizes and so on to motivate people learning more about processes existing in the company. And the last one, we understood that there are particular areas that are less communicated, so we're doing very targeted communication to very targeted areas, because we find out what sales doesn't know is not the same what finance doesn't know. So by this, we actually could target which topics to communicate to whom. As a result, in April 2014, we entered the certification and we got the certificate in June. And now we are the only, we are the only holder of Investors in People bronze standard for Serbia, and we're really proud of that. And we think that this experience actually helps not only to be benchmarked to the very serious set of standards, it also is a huge booster of internal communication and internal engagement in the company, and making closer all the processes that HR is doing to contribute to the bottom line of the business. So thank you very much for your attention.
Ladies and gentlemen, Yuliya Rak, thank you so much.